My name is Christopher Goetz. I'm part of the archival effort to conduct and store interviews of our society leaders, and it's my pleasure to have next to me my close colleague and long-term friend, Cynthia Comella. Welcome, Cindy, to this effort, and I thought we'd start our talk with just a little bit of introduction from you related to your roles in the Movement Disorder Society.
Well, I have been in the Movement Disorder Society since 1991. I started, I like to think, as a very junior person. And for many years, my role was one of a participant. So I learned most of what I know in movement disorders, upcoming new things, through the meetings that were at that time held every other year.
True.
And then became annual meetings. Subsequently, I started into the educational programming. So I was the first chair of the education committee, appointed by Werner Pove many years ago. That's when there was no education committee. So with the MDS, we developed an educational program, or started an educational program, that has, under the leadership of many since, really exploded to become something quite amazing. I've also served on the International Executive Committee. I was fortunate enough to be secretary of the society and have now subsequently assumed a role predominantly in the teaching of leadership to our young members.
We'll talk about that further, because that's a very exciting part of the society and certainly your leadership. Tell our group about how you got involved in this field of movement disorders, because having known you for a long time, you did not start in neurology, and you certainly didn't start in movement disorders. So share with our listeners a little bit of your medical history.
Well, I've had a rather circuitous course to getting here.
A comprehensive course.
Okay. Many careers. I actually started as an internist, so I did my internal medicine training and considered at the time that that's what I wanted to do, go out and be in internal medicine, be a primary care physician. Then in my third year, my senior residency year, I did a neurology rotation. And sure enough, you were the attending on service. And it occurred to me as I did it, it came back to me actually, the love I have of neuroanatomy and then of movement disorders, which is such a clinical field. So it appealed to me so incredibly that it was worth going back, doing a neurology residency, and then taking it the next step in doing a movement disorder fellowship. And here I am.
I certainly remember being the attending on the service, and we had so many rotating internists and psychiatrists and everything, and we neurologists, we tolerated and enjoyed working with these non-neurologists. But I remember distinctly talking with you, and you had your stethoscope around your neck, real internal medicine, and saying, you know, Cindy, you could be a neurologist. And it's the way you were thinking, the anatomical basis, the thrill of thinking about how these different networks hooked up and how it all unveiled itself in a single patient. And I remember that little conversation. It's many years ago, my friend, many years ago. Well, who were the major influences when you think about movement disorders? Who really stands out as a great colleague and mentor?
You know, I have been really fortunate because I've had several great colleagues and several amazing mentors. Amongst them, of course, you got me started.
Well.
You got me back. You guided my career through many different turns. The other person that has been of incredible importance to me is Carly Tanner. She's been one of my best friends and one of my best advisors insofar as career choices, insofar as coaching, giving my first talk. There I am, I'm terrified. And she looked at me and she said, you know it better than they do. Just be yourself. So she got me started in many different areas of my career. But throughout my career, it's been you, it's been Carly. Kathleen Shannon has been an incredible force as well. It's been predominantly within our group at that time that I had most of my inspirations, I have to say.
And how about people perhaps not from that kind of inner circle? Have there been people, well, Carly, for those of listening, Carly Tanner works in California at the University of California, San Francisco, used to be a Chicago neurologist within our group, and has that grace that Cindy's talking about of being of impeccable quality, but natural and encouraging, and always has some nice word to say about for a younger person to encourage. And I think what you said about Carly is absolutely just right on target. Anybody else, other people, nationally, internationally, that have been really important?
That is such a hard question.
It is.
Because there have been so many people that have been so fundamentally helpful to me throughout my career that I regard as colleagues, I regard as friends. If I started the list, I don't know that I could ever stop.
Right. All right. Well, we have a limited time. You have probably more than anyone in the current MDS leadership. You have more experience with the American Academy of Neurology than the rest of us, and at really leadership positions. Can you make any kind of comparisons for the listeners between the Movement Disorder Society as an international society and then the American Academy of Neurology, a very, very large and wide-sweeping organization? Make some comparisons about leadership opportunities, what the experiences of that are like.
Within the academy is a very large group, and it has many levels and many amazing activities. So there are many opportunities to be a leader within the academy. The academy is different because it represents all subspecialty areas of neurology. So it doesn't just include movement disorders, but you have to keep in consideration stroke neurologists, epileptologists. So there are many different fields represented within the academy. It is more an American organization, although it does have global input, whereas the Movement Disorder Society is a smaller, getting bigger, but a smaller organization that has a more really, truly global feel to it. It's made up of people from so many different areas, but their focus is always on one thing, and the focus is on movement disorders. So insofar as hearing some of the latest things going on in movement disorders and understanding movement disorders and having your colleagues in movement disorders to network, I think the Movement Disorder Society fills that in a way that the American Academy of Neurology is not intended to.
Right.
It's not built to do.
Yeah, I see them as such different missions, but when I sit in a lecture hall of, 2,000 people at the American Academy, I may not really be interested in the specific topic because it's more global neurology, but I'm next to all my American colleagues. At the Movement Disorder Society, everybody is intensely interested in the material, and yet their interests may come from very, very different global backgrounds because our geography is so widely spread. So the two have a very different feeling when you go to the congresses.
They're very different, and each in its own way providing valuable insights into neurology.
You see that the leadership experiences are somewhat different in the two organizations, or once you get to leadership is leadership, just it's following the mission of the given society?
Well, I think leadership within the American Academy of Neurology has to respect our colleagues in stroke, in
Yes.
epilepsy. So you want to ensure that they are included in any consideration. So when you're in the academy, although you are a movement disorder specialist, you have to have a much wider range of interests and a much wider range of inclusion.
When you think of career development, when you and I were younger versus what young people are facing today for career development and movement disorders, do you see certain trends that are continuous or certain patterns that are very different from those two eras?
Well, I think those of us
Mm-hmm.
for many, many years have witnessed a multitude of changes, both in our ability to do clinical work as well as in our ability to do research work. To me, it's become a far more complex world than it used to be. For the younger colleagues, they have the fire. It's not that they don't have the fire, but they have to deal with a far more complex world. Fortunately, they don't know it, so they're able to accommodate it and incorporate it. So they just become great physicians, but in an entirely different manner than I think we.
I have the sense that the challenges during my early career, I felt I had a path to take. And there weren't that many other choices. If you were going to succeed, there was a path to take. And you followed that path. I'm not so sure that that message is clear to younger colleagues when there's so many options now. There's so many different ways to go and still end up successful. And that takes a certain amount of maturity at a very young age, or it takes superb mentors that can guide you and help you do that kind of frog leap, where for me, I always felt there was a kind of a straight path. Now for you, internal medicine, sleep medicine, that maybe I'm the unique one here, and it's not so much a sign of the time.
I
You
think
so?
you're the unique one. I think that we all face challenges, but they are different depending on the era in which you are being brought up.
Do you think, let's think about, I mean, you and I have worked together for many years, so we know about the role of career development, but also the power of friendship and trust. Do you have any kind of reflections for the audience about you and me as colleagues?
I think we have had a long-standing and I think amazing careers together.
Yes.
So to me, you are not only my mentor, but you are my friend, you are my sounding board, and you are my reality check. So when things begin to get out of control, I'm able to walk into your office and say, Chris, what should I do now? So I think we have had a very unique relationship throughout the years that has aided me amazingly professionally.
I think that where other people comment, and I notice as well, is that we have individually and collectively, we have lots of colleagues whom we see and spend time with or send emails, and I have contact, but the day-to-day contact and the trust that goes with building a career together is something very special. And I don't know, a lot of people have commented to me, this must be wonderful to have right next door, a colleague of this stature and real peers, and we can learn from one another and we can teach one another, and to have that on a day-to-day basis I think is unique. And I hope you feel I appreciate it, because I feel the same way. Take the final question a little bit larger. Is the career that you see for younger people and for colleagues now, can friendship play a really important role in career development, or is that an oddity that we find friendship and closeness really part of a career?
Well, my experience with the LEAP program, the program which is to teach leadership skills to young people, and we've had 2 groups of leapers, so to speak. And what you see develop in that room is the same kind of camaraderie that we share. I mean, it's a different, it's not as old, it's not as vintage, I suppose.
Right.
But I really think that is definitely a possibility, and it should be sought out, because nothing makes you feel more like you belong than having a friend where you work, a friend where you go to meetings, someone you can meet with, someone you can talk with, someone you can bounce ideas off of. So no, I think that it's an essential part of becoming a movement disorder specialist over the course of years.
And it's funny that it's not really taught in any way. Now, your leadership, this program, again, for the audience, this LEAP program was envisioned to really train the next generation. It was a vision for the leadership, and the natural person to do this is Cynthia Comella. And so she's taken this from concept to the first graduating class. So let's kind of wrap this or move towards ending with the role of friendship and a successful career. How does that play into, is friendship kind of a challenge, or a friendship a goal? Where do we stand with this kind of friendship as part of a successful career?
I think as your colleagues become your friends, it's critical to keep them close. I think that they fulfill a part of you. You just can't be alone. You need their advice. You need them to bounce ideas off of. You need them for networking. So I think that, and I don't know if friendship is exactly the right word, but certainly that feeling of comfort that you get when you run into somebody in the hall, and you get that sense of, I'm so happy to see you. It means a lot when you're miles and miles away from your home, and you're nervous about what you have to present. It provides you with a level of comfort and confidence that you would not otherwise have.
I've already, in my own life, I've thought of science as kind of lonely, that it's a path that I need to take and I'm going to search, but knowing that there's a friend where I can trust, sharing my ideas, showing my doubts, wondering what is the right path, having that, and that's the friendship that I think helps so much, but hard to find, but worth cultivating. And it is of interest that the LEAP program actually is in a way setting the infrastructure for that for all these graduates at the same time.
There have been many friendships forged in our program amongst these young leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so satisfying
I'm
for
sure.
me
I'm sure that's
to see this emerge.
Yeah, well, being in the leadership of the society, I can only say this has just been one of the very fine successes, and thanks to you, so really, truly.